Hey folks, I shaved my head, which is kind of fitting. No, it's not because of chemotherapy or anything, although if I do need chemotherapy, I'll be one step ahead here. I won't be able to take my hair because my hair is gone. And if it did take my hair, I wouldn't really mind because, I like the way I look this way, actually. Even though I kind of look like a Trump supporter, which I'm definitely not. I look a lot tougher this way than I really am, but I think nobody's going to confuse me for being a tough guy. Um, but I am having to tough out the pain, and that's why I'm making this video. Another update. Um, so yeah, they found out that another health update. They found out that I don't have. I got the MRI done. I don't have pancreatic cancer. I mentioned that in a previous video, so that was good. Um, no, no cancer of the liver, but there was one finding that I believe may be the key to this pain that continues even worse now. And that is, I had questionably diffuse thickening of my stomach wall. Now, obviously, that probably doesn't mean a lot to most of you, um, but they said on the report, the radiologist said, "Oh, it's probably just an artifact." This radiologist is doing me no favors. He says it's probably just an artifact. Artifact means that they think it was an error, that I was moving or my stomach was moving or something, and it meant that it didn't show up properly on the scan. But they also said probably just an artifact due to lack of distension. Now, um, when you go in for a pancreatic scan, MRI, which is what I had, they make sure you don't drink or eat anything. And when you don't drink or eat anything, there is the possibility that because your stomach is totally empty, that maybe it shrivels up a little bit. It doesn't have anything to make it distend fully. But there's also the possibility that there is really something wrong. And this is one of the things that sucks. You think you're going in for an MRI, and they're just going to see the whole area and tell you, oh, you're clear, you're fine, or, oh, you have cancer, You think it's going to be one or the other. But instead they tell you, oh, you're fine, except for this little thing which we think, the radiologist seems to think, oh, it's probably just an error in the machine, no big deal, really. But what that ends up happening is when the radiologist says that, you get effed up the ass is what happens. I'm sorry to put it in those terms, but that's where I'm at right now because so I go from that thinking, okay, well, I probably don't have stomach cancer if the guy says it's just an error, and I go back to another doctor. I actually got referred for a second opinion because I was getting tired of having no answers. I've been through it's over 3 months now. And at that time, I went to the other doctor. It was not quite 3 months. Now it's over 3 months. And the other doctor says, "Oh well, it's we." And I said, "Well, what about this finding on my radiology? Diffuse thickening of my stomach wall. Isn't that maybe something to be concerned about?" He's like, "Oh no, you had an endoscopy done, which I did about half a month before the MRI scan." He's like, "Oh, you had the endoscopy done, so it's probably not gastric cancer. You don't have to worry about that." But he listens to my symptoms and says, "Oh, well, I think maybe there might be a problem with your gallbladder still." Now, I just had an MRI done to check my gallbladder, my biliary glands. Um, you know, it seems like it would be unlikely. They didn't find anything on the MRI to suggest there was anything wrong with the gallbladder or biliary glands. But this guy is a big time doctor. I'm not going to say his name for privacy's sake. Well, not a big time doctor. I don't know how big time he is, but he's at a big time hospital, and yeah, that's why I got referred to him. And so I'm like, all right, I'll put faith in the hands of the experienced doctor. He knows what he's talking about. And I go home and look up, the test he ordered for me, which is a HIDA scan. And it's for, to see if your gallbladder, for me, it's to see if my gallbladder was ejecting enough bile. And, it sounds promising when I look online. Similar symptoms to what I have. I'm a little skeptical because I thought we just looked at, the possibility of my gallbladder being dysfunctional. There's been no signs of any kind of crystals or any kinds of, sludge or anything like that. There's no sign of any gallbladder dysfunction. But I thought, well, this guy really seems to think this is the problem. So, and it was a tempting solution because it would mean, oh, they could take out my gallbladder and everything would be fine. So, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He's supposed to know more than me about this stuff. He is a doctor, a specialist even, and I'm just a dude who researches a gajillion medical articles online, and thinks I have everything, I guess. So I go for the scan, and lo and behold, that was about, I think, 2 days ago. Lo and behold, there's nothing wrong with my gallbladder. It's functioning perfectly, which is actually, you'd think I'd be happy about that. Of course not. I'm extremely disappointed because you know what that means? The pain has not gone away. In fact, the pain is getting worse. The last 2 nights, especially burning, constant burning sensation. And burning or gnawing, I would say it's more like gnawing than burning, really. And I'm reaching a point of desperation. I wake up short of breath, just in so much pain. I mean, I don't know, it's not the worst pain I felt in my life, but it's getting, it used to be below a 5 on the scale. Now we're getting like a 6, and it's just kind of constant. It doesn't go away. It doesn't seem to matter what I eat. Although the more I eat, the worse it is. But yeah, there's not much I can do. So anyway, so now I've had this other scan done. They've injected radioactive tracer into me. That's what this gallbladder scan was. They injected me with tracer, and of course it worked. There was nothing wrong with my gallbladder. So now I've been exposed to more radiation for no apparent reason. And I get the follow-up call from my local doctor, not the big-time doctor, but the local doctor who has been my primary GI doc. I got a call from her assistant. It wasn't really her. And her assistant says, well, your scan came back fine, and, pretty much telling me we're done. We're done trying to figure out your problem. We've been through a lot. It's been over 3 months. They have put me through a lot of tests, but the end result is there's no answer for me. And they're telling me, well, we think, I asked, well, when can I get another appointment? She's like, well, you're supposed to have a 4-week follow-up. 4-week follow-up, 4 weeks from now, another month. It's been over 3 months. I'm in the worst pain I've been in since this whole thing started, and you don't want to schedule a follow-up for me for another month. I mean, I understand why they're frustrated because they can't find it, but they gave up. They're giving up. It is a sign to me that my doctor told her assistant, "Look, this guy, he's a difficult patient. He's making things up. I don't want to deal with him anymore." So that's where I'm at now. And I'm going to try to call back the big time doctor I was referred to, or the big guy who works at the big time hospital. And in my mind, I've done more research, and I'm starting to hone in on the possibility of gastric cancer, specifically Borman's type 4, which would be devastating because it's the type of cancer that doesn't present with symptoms until it's stage 4, basically. And just like most cancer, by the way, if you don't realize this, most cancer, by the time you're feeling pain, it's too late to do much about it. You're pretty much terminal. Now, I'm not saying I know I'm terminal yet. I certainly hope not. But I'm certainly feeling pain. So if most cancers don't cause any pain until stage 4, then, in all likelihood, I would be stage 4 if I did have cancer. But anyway. So yeah, what I find out from research today, this Borman stage 4, or not stage 4, Borman type 4 cancer, which could be stage 4, um, includes, get this, lack of distension of the stomach. Huh. Well, that could be the fact that I didn't eat or drink anything the day I had my MRI, but it also could be because I have effing Borman's type 4 cancer. Second thing, diffuse thickening of the wall. Turns out this type of cancer is especially known for diffuse thickening of the wall. Well, what do you know? I had diffuse thickening of the wall. Okay, we're 2 for 2 here. Not good. Continuing on, what is another common aspect of Borman's cancer? How about this? Nearly impossible to find by endoscopy. This is a type of cancer that they've done 3, 4, 5, even 6 endoscopies on people, 5, 6 biopsies through endoscopy. And it's the type of cancer that's deep in the, I think it's the muscle layer. It's not in the mucosal layer on the top. It's not easily seen with a scope. It's down in there. And these other people I'm reading about who had 5, 6 biopsies and still came up negative. I mean, it's amazing. This stuff is really good at hiding. So if God gives you this kind of cancer, He's ready for you to die. That's what it sounds like. And I hate to laugh at that. It's kind of dark humor, but yeah, most people who have this type of cancer don't present until it's too late because they can't find it with endoscopy. The only way they find it is endoscopic ultrasound or a barium swallow, upper GI series, or CT scan sometimes. I mean, MRI can too, but the problem with the MRI scan is that since I had one for MRCP and not for specifically looking at the stomach, they can't rule out the possibility that my stomach was just not distended because of a lack of food or drink in there. Now, I would love to have another MRI because zero radiation with the MRI. And they have an MRI scan that looks at the stomach, and you just drink a crap ton of water first. And then they can look at the stomach. And I'd much rather have another MRI. Are they going to pay for another MRI for me? No way in hell. This is something that my dad has told me. When you were on Medi-Cal, like I am, they don't make money the same way they do if you're on private health insurance. They need to be on private health insurance to make money because they charge the heck out of the private insurers for these tests. They basically, rape them. And everyone, of course, the people who are insured end up paying for it because they raise premiums on everybody and come up with new creative ways to deny you care and things like that. But or deny you coverage. But so yeah, they're not going to do another MRI for me because they've already spent a lot of money, and the money they've spent is chump change. They could be making a lot more for every scan they do for me. They could be making twice as much or more on somebody with private insurance. So they're reluctant to give me any scans. Don't let anyone tell you medicine is about finding a cure. Half the time, at least, it's about the cha-ching, the cashola, which is why I now understand the value of a single-payer healthcare system because they wouldn't be allowed to prioritize someone like me down the line further, although that has other complications I won't get into because that's not what this video is about. But so they're not going to give me another MRI, which would be nice, but that's not what they're going to do. So I have to pretty much, and like I said, my primary GI doctor has abandoned me. So I have to go back to the doctor who works for the more prestigious organization and tell him that I think that I might have this cancer. And that's why they couldn't find it on the endoscopy, even though this guy, being from the big-time hospital, he should know that this type of cancer could possibly exist and isn't, easily found by endoscopy. And maybe he does, and maybe he just didn't think of it, and maybe I'll jog his memory, but it just seems a little ridiculous that I have to be the one that discovers these things. This is something that he should have known, but maybe he would have suggested anyway. I mean, I'm not going to give this guy too much crap because the test he ordered, was a possibility. I'm not going to say it was totally ridiculous, but I was skeptical because they'd taken a good look at my biliary glands in my gallbladder several times already, and everything had come back normal. So I'm a little peeved that I had to go through all that, and all it does is add more delay. It's already been over 3 months, and yesterday I had to call the office. No one ever calls me. I'm doing all the calling, and I called this doctor's office and say, I really would like to get another appointment. They even tell me, well, we're not going to give you another appointment, but we'll have him call you. So they won't even grant me the appointment, probably because they're too busy with all these telehealth appointments because of COVID. So he's supposed to call me. When? Who the heck knows? Who knows if the message even gets to him? It wasn't today. He didn't call me back today. Hopefully tomorrow, but I won't hold my breath. Although, yeah. But when he calls, I have to try to convince him that it's worthwhile to do. I'm gonna try to convince him to do the cheapest of all of the tests, the barium swallow, the cheapest and the least pleasant. I'd rather get another MRI. I mean, CT scan I would take, but more radiation with the CT scan, and probably kind of less pleasant. I don't know. Actually, the barium swallow is pretty unpleasant too. So. But the barium swallow is cheap. CT scan not as cheap, still fairly cheap. So maybe he'd go for the CT scan, but what good is it going to do? I mean, I almost feel like the barium swallow is kind of would be more illusory. Illusory, is that right? No, illuminating. That's what I mean. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and yeah, it's it's been quite the battle, and nobody knows. It's a lonely battle when people don't believe you or people don't take you seriously. I mean, I think they've been taking me seriously to this point, but it's with this COVID-19 going on, it's just slows everything down, and every single time I want a new test, it's another 2 weeks before they can order it, and if I do have cancer, it continues to eat away at my body, eat away into my lymph nodes and peritoneal lining and all these types of things. That's what's going on in my mind anyway. Maybe it's not cancer, but it's been over 3 months and the pain is getting worse. How could this not be cancer? I sort of keep saying to myself. There's no other easy explanation. I don't know of too many issues you can have for over 3 months that don't eventually kill you if you don't do something about it. So, yeah, that's the update. I'm exhausted mentally, physically. I've run into a roadblock in my web development course. We're getting into some very difficult material. We don't have a lot of time to do it. While this is going on, I'm dealing with waking up early for scans and feeling fatigued all the time. And I'm supposed to be exercising, but I end up spending all my time researching my illness because the doctors are not doing it for me or they're not doing it effectively. And I'm just getting tired of it. I'm getting so tired, I'm almost thinking, well, maybe I'm meant to die, maybe this is just my fate. Maybe now is the time that I'm going to go. Maybe not now, but, maybe a year. I don't know how much time I'll have if I do have cancer, but it's almost kind of ridiculous because, it's not going to achieve a lot if they find out I do have cancer. It's not going to, if I have this type of cancer that I think, then the chances of me surviving are slim to none anyway. I mean, I want whatever chance I can get so that maybe if there's a possibility of surgery, they can do it. But, it's funny. I mean, they don't find cancer at all in people that have this kind of thing with endoscopy, and then later they take the stomach out when they finally do come to the conclusion that they have it after many, many tests of the ones like I'm mentioning, CT scan, barium swallow, upper GI series, endoscopic ultrasound. I'd take any one of those tests right now. But anyway, these people have their stomachs taken out, and this cancer is extensive. It's all over their stomach. It's gone to their lymph nodes. It's like, this just goes to show the the level medicine is working at here. Basically, here's a word of warning to you. Be aware of what's being looked at in a test. That is, I think, if there's anything I have to say in this video, it's that. Because oftentimes you think that more is being looked at than actually is, and the reality of the matter is that tests tend to be very specific. They look at a very specific part of the body, and they don't have a lot of scope. They don't usually go beyond a small portion of the body. If you're working with something, I mean, there are exceptions. Obviously, MRI and CT scans, are more comprehensive. But even with those things, there's CT scan without dye, doesn't see certain things, versus CT scan with dye. And sometimes even the CT scan with dye doesn't see things as well as the CT scans without dye. And then excuse me. And then you've got the MRI scans are very specific. They look at very specific areas, I didn't realize. I thought I had a lump on my back. I thought, well, if there was anything going on with the lump on my back, then the MRI would be able to see that. And it turns out my doctor says, no, MRIs can't see lumps on your back. I'm like, what? I thought it was looking through all of me, and it can't see the lump on my back? I mean, I don't know if the GI doctor really knew this for a fact, or she isn't a radiologist, but it's like... And then meanwhile, the MRI I got, my stomach wasn't distended, and you get these questionable, results because, oh, well, we weren't looking at your stomach, we were looking at your pancreas and your ducts, I was kind of hoping that when I went for this gallbladder check scan that they might be able to look at my small intestines. No, it doesn't look at your small intestines. It just looks at the gallbladder. That's it, The small intestines light up, but that doesn't give them any useful diagnostic information. It's just like there's no comprehensive test. There's no test that tells you everything. And you're relying on these doctors to guess right. And if you don't have an obvious problem that's visible right off the bat, especially if you're trying to find things early stage, let me tell you, finding early stage cancer, if you find it, you're a lucky man or woman. Early stage cancer is not visible in an obvious way. So it's overlooked a lot. So if you have an early stage cancer and you get a CT scan done, there's no guarantee they're going to see it. If you have early stage cancer and you have an MRI done, there's no guarantee they're going to see it. And the reason why, they might see something, but they're going to assume it's not because they don't want to operate on you for early stage cancer. Because if they're wrong, then they've operated on you for no reason. And that's even worse than operating on you. I mean, obviously it's not worse if they find early stage cancer, but, it's too big of a risk for them to take. So, yeah, now it's like on top of all this. So yeah, just, if you're getting... If you're worried about having something, make sure, when they do the endoscopy, another example, a test doesn't, depending on angle, when they're doing the endoscopy, they're seeing from the inside of the stomach. They're not seeing the outside of the stomach. There's only one good test for looking at the outside of the stomach and all the areas in between, in that zone, and that's a laparoscopy, where they stab you in the chest 4 times, and they insert cameras and go poking around in there with cameras. And meanwhile, you have the laparoscopy. Guess what? Now you're at risk for adhesions. Now you're at risk for, complications. Laparoscopy has its own risks on top of that, Things can happen. I almost wish I just had a laparoscopy from the beginning, to be honest, because they would never do that for you. That's the thing. They won't do laparoscopy unless they strongly suspect cancer. So the most effective test you can get is not something they'd ever give you until they're sure you have anything. But the irony there is that they can't be sure you have something until they do the risky test. So, basically when they do the endoscopy, they're looking at the inside, but they can't see the outside. And it's just all these tests have limitations like that. You think that you're getting some test that's gonna, be a definitive answer. And let me tell you, getting a definitive answer in medicine, not easy. It is a bitch. And this is why doctors, I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of respect for doctors at this point. I mean, I could have ordered the same tests. I've done all this research on my own. I would have ordered all the tests that I've had done for myself. I mean, I probably wouldn't have ordered the HIDA scan. I didn't come across that anywhere. I wasn't really worried about my gallbladder. I would have ordered the MRI. In fact, I practically did order the MRI. I told them I was worried about my pancreas. That was a wrong hunch, but I think it was worth ruling out because, with stomach issues, pancreas is up there as a possible cause. And since I'd had the endoscopy done, it seemed unlikely to be a stomach problem. But now, the reason why I think it's a stomach problem is I just have this, it's called postprandial, I don't know if it's indigestion. I think postprandial pain, indigestion. I think it's indigestion. Indigestion, where it's it's where food doesn't pass through your stomach. And I think that's what's been going on. I think I've been getting issues at night because the food is stuck in my stomach and causing issues after many hours of being stuck and trying to work its way through the stomach or trying to work its way through the duodenum or whatever. It's pretty confusing. And the burning, it's the burning. I've taken acid reflux. I've taken a proton pump inhibitor. I've taken tonight. I took my omeprazole, and which is a proton pump inhibitor, and i.e. Prilosec, prescription Prilosec, and I took 2 Pepto-Bismols because I'm desperate and I don't want to feel pain anymore. And right now I feel okay, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to wake up after an hour, maybe 2, with horrible pain and shortness of breath because I probably have apnea simultaneously. And I'm going to feel like I'm dying, and I'm going to cry a little inside and have no one to turn to because it's the middle of the night and I'm a lonely guy, and that's just my life. And I can't even turn to my mother when I wake up because she is in total denial about my situation and refuses to acknowledge that I might have something serious. She just keeps dismissing it because I don't think she can handle it emotionally. And so the burden of this is all placed on me. And everyone is dismissing me, but I know what I feel, and it is bad. I've felt like it's going to kill me for the last, pretty much 3 months. I mean, it feels like something that's going to kill me for 3 months, and I'm still convinced that that's the case. It is painful. Nothing works. I take all this stuff, and it temporarily relieves the pain, and then I go off of it, after a while, and it comes right back just where it was, All it's doing is masking the symptoms, but it ain't solving the problem. So yeah, now throw in another complication. When I might make my next video about, I was going to make a video about COVID-19, and as I go to get all these tests done, I'm being continuously exposed every time they send me for a new test. Now I want the tests. But it would be nice if they'd, if they could have found something wrong by now, so I wouldn't have to keep going back. But I keep going back to the hospital, and I keep worrying about getting COVID-19. But so far, so good. Except today, you might notice I've been blowing my nose a little bit. I had a little bit of a sore throat earlier. No fever yet. No fever. But these could be the early signs. And if I do contract COVID-19 and I do have cancer, then it's going to be an early exit for your boy here. Oh, your 40-year-old, soon to be 40-year-old man here, which is, maybe I'm getting out at a good time, 40. Maybe this is God's way of keeping me from being a pathetic asshole the rest of my life. That's what I like to think. Or maybe God's shuffling me off the mortal coil before the disaster happens. This could be the beginning. This is first wave coronavirus, and eventually, there's going to be massive death and all that. I mean, I don't want to think that, I don't want to see that happen, but I do want to see Americans learn to, or not Americans, humanity learn to live in balance with nature, and, I'll talk about that in the next video, because it's a point I'm making. But basically, I'd like to believe that that God's looking out for me, and that He's gonna take me to a better place. But I don't have faith that that's the case. I wish I did. I am actually gonna go back to reading the Bible a bit because insurance. I do believe that if you act on the principles in the Bible, you will be a truly loving, giving person. But I don't know if there'll be any reward for it. I don't know if I believe I'll be resurrected after 1,000 years or any of that stuff. The only thing that gives me hope really is those stories of people who have had near-death experiences who say that they felt like they were, everywhere and everything, and part of a butterfly's wing, and then they were a seal, and they were a bird, and then they were a part of a rock, and that they were just, they felt one with everything, and an amazing sense of peace and calm, and all that sounds real nice. Maybe that's better than this life. Certainly wouldn't be too hard to top this life for me. Even though, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate it, and I don't want it to end. But I'm mentally preparing myself for that possibility. And, if it's nothing forever, well, I guess could be worse. But yeah, that's it. That's my health update. I guess I'll let you know what happens. Not that anyone cares. It's probably more done for me than anyone else, but there you have it. Next, oh yeah, and I'll tell you if I get COVID too. I might be headed down that path, but it's still early. Hopefully, I just have a runny nose, and I'll feel better tomorrow. But if you don't see me again, I probably died of COVID. So have good lives. But I hope I see you soon.